Hi, this is Morelli. This is going to be the laddering for the 28th of February, the last day of the ladder. This video is going to be extra long because I played a lot of games. I didn't record all of them, but that still means a lot of recording for you guys to watch. Here, I just lead with the Kyogre, which threatens Swampert leads, and Urshifu and Mimikyu just gives me best odds at winning 1v1s, so this maximizes my 1v1 potentials. He leads off with the Swampert, and I am going to be able to get a pretty free water spout here. He could be especially defensive and use Mirror Coat, but if I just let him get the yawn off, that could be really annoying. Also, if he goes for the Stealth Rock, my Urshifu's Focus Sash is going to be broken, so I decide that I am just going to go for the Water Spout, which only hurts if he is some kind of Mirror Coat set, and he reveals to be Focus Sash. This is 100% Mirror Coat. Yep, so even though I got that turn wrong, this is still not the end of the world for me. I still have Urshifu in Rain and Mimikyu, and I still have my Dynamax. So this is not the ideal position, but still quite doable. I am just going to go for the Surging Strikes because he has Focus Sash, and he has no priority moves. And Surging Strikes will hit any switch in the hardest. He probably isn't going to switch out though, because unless he gets lucky with the Static Para, or he can go into Kyogre, but that still takes a ton of damage, so he is smart to let this go and just try to get the better matchup here. After the Swampert goes down, he gets a free switch in, so that is opportunity for him to reveal whatever his last is. If he has Zapdos, that might be a good time to bring that in and Dynamax it. But he is taking a while though, so my suspicion is that he might not have the Zapdos. And he does bring the Cinderace, so I am just going to go for the Surging Strikes. That plays around the Focus Sash, that also plays around a potential Max Airstream, which is going to turn Cinderace into a flying type. So I have very little reason not to go for the Surging Strikes, which covers most of my bases for sure, yeah. Cinderace decides to go for the high jump kick, which does connect, so this is going to bring me down to decently low health. It is Life Orb, but Surging Strikes is going to take it out. Now my opponent is thinking about whatever his last is, but whatever it is, it's not going to have a fun time dealing with both the Urshifu and the Mimikyu with the Dynamax still available. I go for the Close Combat, which is the move that hits the hardest. Even though it could potentially activate his weakness policy, I don't really mind that because I have the Mimikyu in the back, and he is never going to be able to actually get the damage off of me. And if he were to ever get the damage on my Mimikyu without the disguise, then that would always KO me with Max Steel Spike, so I have no reason to try to play around the weakness policy. I will just go for the strongest attack here. That doesn't do half, so yeah, that class 3 here is very bulky. And it is going to go for the Max Hailstorm and get a KO. I am a bit concerned about the potential Custap Berry, because as far as I know, that is going to be the only way for him to save himself from this position. I choose to go for the Max Phantasm here. That will let me get off a significant chunk of damage and drop his defenses. And on the final turn, I can max guard. And I can try to play around the Custap Berry if this Max Phantasm brings him down to Custap range. Because I would be max guarding on that Custap activation turn. And if it doesn't bring him down to Custap range, then I will just be able to max guard and KO it with Max Phantasm. And if he were to have Endure, then I would be able to play around the Custap turn with Shadow Sneak, because my Dynamax would be over by then. However, this all just turns out to be mere hypothetical, because he is not in Custap range, and he drops his defenses, and he does not even have Max Steel Spike. So this second Max Phantasm is definitely going to get the kill. On the second game, we have a game against Calyrex Shadow Rider. He has Hippowdon and Arcanine, which is his defensive backbone, and also a way to help his Calyrex set up with Nasty Plot or Substitute. He also has a few Pokemon that are good at trading, like the Urshifu and the Azumarill. Kyogre and Zapdos have good matchups here, and Mimikyu will be able to revenge the Calyrex. My opponent leads with the Azumarill, and this is likely his best set Azumarill because this is the only water resist he has, and it seems fairly obvious that I would lead Kyogre without the apparent Kyogre check. However, because AV is still really strong physically, and AV Kyogre is not very strong, defense bulky physically, so I am just going to go for the Thunder, which will give me some chances to paralyze it. Also, will give me some good damage on the Asu and put it in range of whatever I have in the back. Fortunately goes for the max Knuckle, and that means that I'm able to survive 2 turns with this Kyogre. Thunder is doing surprisingly little damage though, so I am going to have to sack the Kyogre here. Dynamaxing here would be a really bad play. And he just goes for the Max Starfall. I don't get any paralysis, but that wasn't going to matter too much unless I actually got the full paralysis on top of that. I am actually a bit concerned about Zapdos not KOing the Asu with just straight up Max Lightning, because it is based off of Volt Switch, not Thunderbolt. So I am just going to be able to go for the Phantom Force here, which will expend his final turn of Dynamax. We'll go for the Max Phantasm. That will play around any potential Keyberry or any physically defensive Zapdos set that might be too difficult to break through without with just regular attacks using Mimikyu. Zapdos reveals to be faster, and it is going to be brought down to very low, but not KO'd. This is actually not pretty beneficial for me. And the reason is that I'm able to undynamax by wasting his turn. Because I need to be able to go for the Shadow Sneak to actually KO the Calyrex without getting KO'd first. This is actually a turn I a bit regret. I could have just gone for the Max Guard here, and that would have expended all 3 turns of Dynamax for this Mimikyu, and I would have just been able to win with Shadow Sneak, but that was a pretty big misplay here, and this is going to be introducing some chance for him to actually get back into the game in a game that had no business being this close. Here, I can go for the max card, but if he goes for the substitute, that would be really bad. So I predict the substitute. Most Calyrex Shadow are running substitute. So I'm going to go for this Zapdos play, which actually honestly covers most of my bases. If he just goes straight for the attack, that means that I am gonna be able to bring my Mimikyu back and Shadow Sneak. And because I only have Volt Switch as my fully accurate attack, I am forced to go for the Hurricane. I unfortunately do not connect. And his Astral Barrage is going to land on my Zapdos. And because my Zapdos has no bulk investment, that just KOs. Very unfortunate of me to miss the 70% Hurricane. And technically, he could have still gotten his 30% chance to win the game by switching in his Calyrex on the max guard turn. But that is still 70% chance for him to win, even if he gets a really crazy read. So I should have definitely gone for that. But I don't, and I lose this one. My next game is against Eternatus. You can tell that this is actually an offensive Eternatus team by the Landorus, Cinderace, and the Ditto. Celesteela and Chansey, it seems like they are more of a defensive backbone on an offensive team rather than a stall team that has a few offensive options. Kyogre and Mimikyu chip the Eternatus. My Landorus will chip down the Celesteela so that Mimikyu can sweep. My opponent could go into the Chansey here, but there is no reason for me to take such a huge risk turn 1 when my Lando or the Mimikyu can just get the momentum back on the Chansey right away anyway. Thanks to the Assault Vest, the Dynamax Cannon barely does under half, and I am able to threaten the 2-hit KO with Ice Beam. With him not revealing the Chansey, I have no reason to predict anything here. I will simply go Ice Beam and force him to reveal whatever he has in the back. He did have the Chansey, so there was very little reason for him to not go to the Chansey the first time, but I'm not complaining. I will simply go into the Mimikyu and set up. And As I said, either Mimikyu or the Landers can chip down the Celesteela, and once the Celesteela is chipped down, the whichever one that I have left can win the game. Uh, he does double out into Eternatus, which is a bit of an ambitious play for sure, but it will chuck the Urshifu, and Landorus maybe would have gotten a lot of damage on that, so I do agree where he was coming from, even though it didn't work out this time. I can just simply go for the play rough here, which will just KO this Eternatus if I actually connect. He has Landorus as his last, so this seems like a prime position for my own Landorus to win the game here. I could go for the Phantom Force and burn his an extra turn of his Dynamax, but that would seriously get punished if he were to go for the Swords Dance. I couldn't risk that, and in fact I have no reason to risk it, because my own Landorus with the Swords Dance should win the game here. Mimikyu does sizable chip, which suggests that this Landorus is offensive. He will go for the Max Airstream, which will obviously take out this uninvested Mimikyu out. And he is Life Orb, also confirming that he is heavily offensive. He definitely needs to get a lot of kills here, but I don't really have much concern, because even though his Landorus is faster and quite strong even after this initial Intimidate, I have a Sack in my half HP Kyogre. Kyogre can't really do anything to Chansey, so this is a very good chance for me to get the Sack, and this will allow me to get 2 Intimidates against this Landorus T. Because he is Life Orb, I do not feel comfortable going for the Sword Stance, and this also risks a potential crit as well. So I am just going to go for the Max Guard. But in my opinion, this turn really won't matter, because he will probably try to go for the Max Guard here. I am just okay minimizing the amount of damage I take against this -2 Landers T. And the plan is that I will have enough HP on the Landers after the Dynamax runs out, so I can just Swords Dance up on the Chansey and beat it that way. So yeah, he does go for the Max Guard, which will burn all my turns of Dynamax, because he can simply go for the Fly here. But I had no reason to call that Max Guard by going for a Swords Dance or something like that. That could have gone very wrong. He will withdraw his Landorus, but because with these Airstream boosts, I will be faster than his own Landorus, and Chansey takes a ton from that Max Airstream with the crit, but I don't think it really matters. It Yeah, the Chansey lived on like 1 HP, so the crit actually doesn't end up mattering. And I am able to go for the final Max Airstream to cover the potential Landor switch and also KO the finish off with Chansey. He smartly stacks the Chansey, which means that he will be a life of Lando. He has cleared all his Intimidate drops, so his fly is going to be hitting super hard. But I am +2 on the Landorus in terms of speed, so I can just go for the Sword Stance here. And if he goes for the Rock Tomb or anything like that, then 2 Rock Slides after +1 would KO it for sure. But in case he goes for the Fly immediately, then I can go for the follow-up Fly. Because my Fly is faster, I will be able to dodge his Fly and win this 1v1. Yeah, definitely a good thing I didn't just go for the Fly for the immediate damage. That probably wouldn't have killed either, because I am at -1. And actually I can afford to miss at least one here, because even if he goes for the Rock Tomb, I am +2 speed, so I can afford to take at least one Rock Tomb. And that is if he actually has Rock Tomb. But none of that matters, I am able to land the Fly. A +1 Fly should KO this offensive Lando, and I win the game. This brings me to top 1000, which at this time of the recording was 1880-ish. So I am matched against the Zygarde team, an offensive Zygarde team it seems. And if I am to win this one, I will be able to break 1900. Urshifu seems to have a really good offensive matchup against everything other than the Whimsicott and the Finny. So I'm just going to go Urshifu plus Finny, Ferrothorn, which should cover both, and Kyogre is going to be my win condition in the back. Kyogre should be able to do a lot of damage to just about everything, and it also will be able to 1v1 Zygarde because it has an Ice Move. My opponent reveals Ferrothorn, and with my own Ferrothorn and Kyogre in the back, I have no reason not to click Close Combat for the immediate damage. It would be really nice if I can get this off, but of course he doesn't let me. That is Finny coming in, and that is able to take the close combat quite nicely. I should be able to figure out his spread with the close combat damage roll. That does depressingly little damage, so I am very confident that this is fully physically defensive top of Finny. I have to preserve my Urshifu. I want to preserve my Urshifu for the opposing Ferrothorn. So I will go into my own Ferrothorn here. My opponent does read that quite nicely, and he goes for the Nature's Madness, doing half to my Ferrothorn. And I go for the Body Press because I thought he could try to go back into his own Ferrothorn as well, but he reads nicely and goes for the Taunt. And I'm just a bit paranoid of him playing around the Power Whip, because Finny is such a key Pokemon on his team for its ability to actually handle the Urshifu. So to me, this is not making much sense that he is just risking this Finny to the potential Power Whip. And with the Body Press damage, I think I am in a favorable role to KO this Finny, and I will go for it, judging by how insistent he was in not switching it out. And this is why you have to weigh risk versus reward. He got 3 turns correct of me not going for the Power Whip, and he looked like a boss, but 1 turn wrong, I get the Power Whip on him. I get the crit, but I don't think it really mattered. And Finny goes down, and now he's in a big trouble. He goes back out into his own Ferrothorn, so this tells me he is probably also Body Press. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone into it. I am actually a full IV, a full speed IV on my Ferrothorn, so I go for the Iron Defense because I feel fairly confident that I am going to be the faster Ferrothorn here. And I do win this speed tie, or is it a speed tie at all? And I thought just I'm gonna put as much damage on this Ferrothorn as possible. But it turns out it is a speed tie. He also has a full speed IV Ferrothorn. And this body press is not going to be doing anywhere near enough. But this is still solid chip damage. If I can get another one of those body presses, then Kyogre and Urshifu should be able to combine for a KO against this defensive Ferrothorn. But unfortunately, I lose this speed tie again, so that means that I won't be able to put any more damage on this Ferrothorn. And that is clearly above Water Spout range. And he has plus 4 defense, so I also don't feel confident going into the Urshifu. I do go for the Kyogre because Water Spout should be doing slightly above half, and that would probably put me his Ferrothorn either would get 2-hit KO'd by Water Spout into Origin Pulse, or if he gets the KO here, then Urshifu might be able to just go for the Max Knuckles. So he reveals that he is Leech Seed plus Protect as well. So that is going to be a mono body press Ferrothorn, which is pretty rare. I don't think I've seen it in a while, but I don't think it makes much of a difference because if you were Gyro Ball, which is probably fine on it, then that probably didn't matter either because that doesn't hit Kyogre or the Urshifu. So yeah, this is a physically defensive Ferrothorn, and that does a ton, and that's why you need to use specially defensive Ferrothorn if you're actually using it to check Kyogre. I do die there, but it was a roll. It was slightly in his favor. If he is fully physically defensive, then plus 4 body press was going to have 62.5% chance to KO, plus the crit chance. So definitely not a favorable roll, but I do have the Urshifu in the back, and I'm spending all my time here calcing, because I want to make sure if I should go for the close combat here, or if I should go for the Max Knuckles. And it's a bit difficult for me to press the capture screen button every 30 seconds and have the time to actually think about the plays and make all the calcs as well. So I don't want to make excuses, so if that sounds like an excuse, it isn't. I'm just trying to explain why I'm trying to take as much of my time as possible here because honestly, you should too. I know a lot of calcs off the top of my head, which means that I don't have to calc every turn. Also, I'm used to calcing in between animations, but you might not be. So if you are having difficulty making all these calcs in between battles, trying to make informed decisions, take your time. Your close combat was a roll to KO, so I'm just going to go for the Max Knuckle. I do apologize for in advance because I ran out of room on my SD card. Actually, I still have plenty of space. They just don't let you take more than 1,000 clips saved at a time. So Ferrothorn goes down here, and he brings in the Zygarde, and he Dynamaxes it and gets owned by Max Hailstorm. So I thought this put me at 1900, but it turns out I was at 1899 exactly. So I queued up for another game real quick, and my opponent has very little options to actually beat my AV Kyogre. He has his Zapdos, but Zapdos is actually not the strongest Kyogre counter, especially if I go for the Dynamax. Mimikyu is there to give me more of an insurance against the Zapdos, and Urshifu also takes advantage of the fact that he has basically no water resist. here, because I have such a favorable matchup, and I just decide to go for the water spout here. It is not going to be boosted by rain, but it's still going to do a sizable chunk, and this will let me actually save my Dynamax so that I can use it with Mimikyu, which would basically ensure that I would not lose against the Zapdos, which is my biggest concern here, is with this 3, like, Zapdos, if he finds a way to win, that is with his Zapdos. He lives because he is AV, and Superpower does more than half, so my Water Spout is going to be pretty weak, and I go for the Origin Pulse here. He could potentially try to get sneaky, and if I play around the locked-in Water Spout and switch out, so I am simply going to go for the Origin Pulse, which would deny any such play. Fortunately, no misses here. We are able to take out this Tyranitar. And the good thing here is if he brings out his Zapdos and I have to sack Kyogre, then I won't be able to reset the rain, but I will be able to stall out the Sandstorm so that Urshifu's Focus Sash remains in play. So Zapdos will get this KO, and Mimikyu will be able to 1v1 the Zapdos. Or if he switches out, that would probably mean another KO for my Mimikyu. And in that case, I'll be able to get a Phantom Force on the... either get the Max Phantasm on the Zapdos, or be able to stall out his Zapdos' whole Dynamax with Phantom Force if he decides to Max Guard away my Max Phantasm. But my Kyogre is faster, and unfortunately for my opponent, he gets the freeze. So yeah, this is a bit of a clownfest moment for him. He loses his Zapdos for free, so even though this was not exactly his best matchup here, he basically lost his only out by getting both his Dynamax and Zapdos removed on a single turn. So yeah, that kind of really sucks for him, and I can't possibly end on that note. So I have very little time until the ladder completely resets, but I was in 1914 points, and if I were to win here, then I would be in 1930-ish. So that actually gives me a legitimate chance to finish in the 2000s if I actually win out 3-4 more games. Kyogre as usual, in order to force the Chansey, which gets abused by both the Mimikyu and the Landorus P. He leads with Yveltal, which is a really favorable matchup for the Kyogre usually because I am Assault Vest, and it takes nothing from the Yveltal. And I don't want to Dynamax here because the Chansey is potentially in the back. I want to use my Dynamax on either the Landorus or the Mimikyu, and that way I'll be able to break through the Chansey. I will go for the Thunder, which should do a lot of damage, doesn't miss, and has the chance to paralysis. And he goes for the Max Darkness here, and it just one-shots the Kyogre with no crit. So that is a physically offensive Yveltal. And actually it turns out that it was actually pretty decently common on the super high ladder. And here I am trying to find my way to get out of this jam, but this is not looking good for me. He probably has Steel Wing as well, so this Airstream and Steel Wing will beat the Mimikyu here, even if I Dynamax. Because he has the Life Orb. Yeah, I am trying to find a way out, but I am struggling. So I decided that my best chance to win here is with the Landorus, depending on whatever he has in the back. I cannot possibly cover all the possible thirds on his seconds or thirds in his team. I just have to hope for the best that my Landorus will have a favorable matchup in the back. He has no reason to switch out here. I Shadow Sneak to get the maximum damage on him. And yes, he does reveal the Max Steel Spike, which does a lot of damage to Mimikyu. So even if I Dynamax there, that was probably not the best idea. So Lando against the world. If I can get a KO every turn, then this could end up working out in my favor. And he does stay in with Evil Toss, so I might be able to do exactly that. If I get the Airstream and KO the Zapdos with Max Rock Ball, that would be really great. But he reveals the U-turn, and that means that he's going to be able to save his Evil Tall until my Dynamax ends, probably. And that is not good for me. He might be able to play around my Max Quakes with his Evil Tall and all that, and he does bring in the Zapdos here, so it's a shame that I did not call that, cover that with the potential Max Rock Ball, but I mean, it's hard to blame going for the Max Airstream here, which is very tempting. He does go for the Hurricane before the Lando, so that is a Scarf Zapdos. So Max Rockball would have definitely KO'd, so. Actually, I was kind of a bit upset when I saw the Zapdos switch in, because that could have potentially lost him the game, so. That also suggests that he also thought that unless he made the Airstream call, then he could have actually lost the game. So I was right to save the Lando in the back, but unfortunately I didn't think ahead enough to call the Zapdos. And I will play this out, but this is basically but a formality. Unless he has the Heatran as his third, there's no way I can beat either the Chansey or the Finny or the Lando, so. And basically I just wanted to see what he had in the back. He reveals the Finny fair, so if I got all the KOs every turn, then got the Max Quake on the Finny, then I definitely could have won this with just the Lando, despite the really poor first turn. So I'll just go for the Rock Slide, but I probably lost this like 99.9 something percent, probably. And no such miracle happens, so I am out of 1900s now. So I'm gonna unfortunately cut my losses and just play until I get back into 1900s and stop there instead of tilting off the face of the earth. And for this game, we are against a very similar looking Kyogre team. We have same 4 Pokemon, he has the Celesteela, which I think he is very likely to bring, considering his other options versus my Lando are fairly limited. But I decided to go for the Kyogre Urshifu Mimikyu, which really maximizes my 1v1 potential. And you might have realized that I brought that 3 fairly often because of that. My opponent is also wielding a matchup-focused team, so I saw very little reason to try to reduce my 1v1 capacity. And we will go for the Max Geyser here. If he goes for the Max Lightning, I actually take 2 of that because of the Assault Vest. And whatever he switches out into is also going to be taking a ton, because he has very little in terms of actual water resists. So yeah, I take very little damage from the Zapdos Volt Switch, and this means that with my Max Geyser, I get to hit something really hard. Kyogre comes in, and this is still going to be taking quite a ton from this Max Geyser, enough to put him in Max Lightning range, even if he Dynamaxes. He gets the crit, but even without that, that was doing above half, as you can see. But because of the crit, I can just go for another Max Geyser. Even if he Dynamaxes, there's no chance he lives that. He goes for the Thunder, which is his strongest attack here. And unfortunately for me, I do get the paralysis. And if my Dynamax Kyogre wastes turns getting paralyzed, that could end up really biting me in the butt. And he brings in Zapdos again, so we saw that this is not in KO range of Volt Switch or Thunderbolt, so if I get this Max Geyser, then I'm getting another kill, actually. Unless his Zapdos is also Dynamaxing. And actually, I don't think Zapdos Max Lightning would be able to take me out. Yeah, that did not enough, even with the Max Lightning base power to KO. And I do take out the Zapdos here. So it's definitely a bit aggravating that I did get hit with the Thunder Paralysis, because otherwise I would have just been able to Thunder this, and even with the potential of a weakness policy and airstream and whatever, like Celesteela just simply cannot handle the onslaught of 3 Pokemon. He does Dynamax his Celesteela, which means that I will be able to at least use either the Mimikyu or the Urshifu to hit a non-max Celesteela. I decide to go for the Urshifu first for the Surging Strikes in range, and on top of that, this will force him to go for either the Airstream or the Overgrowth, and either way he would not be able to boost his defenses, which is the most pressing concern here. And I also am thinking a lot of Celesteelas with Overgrowth also might not be using Airstream, so there would be Steel Spike, Fire Move, Grass Move, and Rock Fall. And that would make me think that he does not go for the Airstream, and I'm able to get 2 Surging Strikes off with the Urshifu. Actually, I do go for the close combat here, because close combat can crit. And it does, so good thing that I played around all the edge cases. But even with the crit, Celesteela cannot possibly survive a +2 Phantom Force, even if he were at a bit higher health. I do choose to go for the straight up Phantom Force as opposed to going for the Swords Dance. Even if I miss out on this KO, I can still get a follow up Phantom Force. And if he gets a Leech Seed off, maybe some flies and some... There's the potential for a lot of headache here, so I just decide to go for the Phantom Force. And I do get the KO, so this will put me back right up above 1900. And this is going to be the end of the laddering session. Honestly, not exactly happy with the fact that I stopped at 1900, but I mean, I still wanted to share with you guys what I did for this season. And this is the team that I used. Kiby built it, but he stopped using this. He made some tweaks, and that's why I felt comfortable sharing that now. And that's gonna be it for today's video. This was a long one, and hopefully I can do better in the next season. Alright, bye.